we've got Kurt here, who is going to talk from Tree Project, and Kurt has been 20 years with Tree Project, past president as well of Tree Project, but recently stepped down to now be a very active volunteer for the cause, which is fantastic. But before we get to Kurt, I want to also introduce Lena, who should be on your screen, hopefully. If you can wave, Lena. Lena is also out in the bush as well at a beautiful setting. Lena is the APT or the ATG cause champion for Tree Project. So she's adopted this. Lena, do you want to just tell us for a moment a little bit about this, why you wanted to be a cause champion with the One Tomorrow, and why you selected this one?
I just thought it might be an extra bit of something for me to give back and use a bit of my skills and branch out and meet new people at the same time. I saw sort of the volunteer opportunities for our days off that we can have for our volunteers days, and I thought this could be something I could bring into that as well. I'll let you guys talk about volunteer days, but yeah, it's not that difficult. So I hope some other people get on board and join in. It's a great cause, and there's plenty more that I think need some help as well. Thanks, Rob.
Branch out deliberate? Was that branch out seemed to be an appropriate term, didn't it? Eh? That was good. I like that.
Oh, I'm not a very good public speaker.
I was linking the trees. That's all right.
No, that's very good. It's definitely a Tree Project joke, that one. It is great. And as people have seen, that we do have ads out for cause champions. If you're interested, respond to the things that have been on the internal newsletter, or talk to our very trusted and respected Katrina McKay, who is drumming up business and support there for people who are cause what wish to be or interested in being cause champions. You can tell you a little bit more about it. But it's all about helping facilitate events like this and increase awareness and encouraging workplace giving, which is going terrifically. Well done, Katrina. And also about volunteers days, as Lena mentioned, where your team can come together and go and do something. And this is a really
connection.
I think it's Rob's connection. Hopefully he'll come back. I think we're all still here.
Where they work, and I believe there could be the odd winery in that vicinity as well. So it all seems to fit together well. So with no further ado, I'll hand over to Kurt. As I said, Kurt's a 20-year volunteer with Tree Project, and had a lot to do with it. And you'll tell us about what Tree Project does, how it all fits into the scheme of things, and some of the great things, and how it actually works. So it's quite a really clever system that you've developed there with Tree Project, and then with the engagement of various volunteers to bring it all about.
Okay, hello, welcome everybody. I'm Kurt, obviously. To continue with the Tree Project joke, I hope that some of I will say will take root. What Tree Project does is we're using basically volunteers to help revegetate country Victoria on farms, private landholders generally. And how we do that, we have, oh, sorry, I thought somebody else was talking. What we do is we approach landholders, or landholders approach us saying, we would like to have, trees X, Y, Z for flowers or birds or erosion control for whatever reason. And then Tree Project then collects the seeds through a variety of possibilities. And then they will separate of, sorry, now I'm losing a little bit of train of thought here, sorry for that. Then we will basically get the seed and distribute it to all our voluntary growers. So what Tree Project does, the volunteers that are basically all around Melbourne, or in fact all around Victoria, grow trees. Hang on, is this happening? Oh, just Craig, you're doing things.
Yeah, this is Craig's slide.
Okay. Sorry, I thought I was losing you for a minute.
No, still got you.
Tree Project has all these volunteers that get educated by Tree Project about how to grow trees, and that's basically a morning crash course, and then they all get distributed with one growing kit, which is one of those 7 one of those boxes, as you can see this lady is holding. Sorry, that's not one, but it's 7 of boxes is one growing kit, which is about 350 trees. They manage that from seed to the plants that you can see there. And once they're ready to be planted at the beginning of winter, the landholders get in contact with the growers or vice versa, and frequently the growers who have very tenderly looked after all the plants will then take the plants to the landholder and often help them plant. And this has all sorts of benefits. The great benefits from Tree Project, from my point of view, is that we're really bringing together people who are wanting to do something good for the environment with landholders in the countryside, and the overlap there is that we've found that there's a lot of ignorance from landholders towards city people and city people towards landholders. So the day-to-day issues that they deal with don't get really well understood frequently, and the relationships that have evolved over many years with Tree Project and landholders have made some great friends, and has given people in Melbourne the ability to do something right for the environment and also for themselves, because the mental aspect of actually doing good things for environment and for landholders and going out there and plant trees is certainly a big aspect of Tree Project.
Yeah, fantastic. So just on the volunteering part, so there's, as I understand, there's 2 main elements to it. One is the growing of the trees and the nurturing. And how long does that take, Kurt, before the trees
the growing is pretty much starting at this moment. We are just, Tree Project at the moment is sort of collecting all the seeds, putting the growing kits together, and all the growers are now being decided. So they're basically, I'm a landholder in sort of almost central Victoria. So if I were to order trees, all my growers would be sort of around the Lancefield area or sort of the northern suburbs from Melbourne. If you are, for example, a landholder in the Yarra Valley, you may have a lot of your growers, say, Box Hill Way or even Lilydale or, Hillsville. Sorry, can you repeat the question?
How long does it,
how long does
part of it is the growing of the trees. So if I get a kit delivered from Tree Project, how long is it before those trees are ready to be planted?
Yeah, so in December, the first growing kits will be distributed. The first seeds will be planted pretty much straight after that. And once that happens, they will be looked after all through summer until the first rain comes, the winter rain. So that could be as early as May.
6 months.
Yeah,
4 to 6 months.
Pretty much 4 to 6 months, yes, correct.
Yeah.
But it could be longer, because some farmers want spring plantings rather than autumn plantings, and for a variety of reasons. Often depending on where they are, because if you get strong frost, you would obviously want to plant a little bit later to avoid having those frost, and then the trees won't die in winter. And so there's an early distribution and a late distribution, but it's about 4 to 6 months.
And this is free to the farmers?
No, it's not free. It is at a very heavily discounted rate. So as a farmer, I think it's about 45 cents per tree. That may vary 5 cents other way. I'm not 100% sure of the latest price, but it's about 45 cents a tree. And that is pretty much a tree planted in the ground. So if you compare that to, for example, commercial rates, that is about a tenth of the price. Normally speaking.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot better than the nursery I go to, anyway.
Yeah, well, but then Tree Project has a minimum of 500 trees. So, if you are going to the nursery, you can come home with 2 or 3 plants as a landholder. So we're really looking for the bigger landholders and for those who wanted to, plant large areas or just a lot of plants. If you plant grasses, you don't need that much space. But certainly if you want to plant trees, we are talking acres rather than Melbourne gardens.
Yes, obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you say, the line just dropped out on me then, did you say 400 or 500 trees in a planting?
No, I said the minimum amount that a landholder can order with Tree Project is 500 trees.
500.
Yeah, And the average planting is, I would say about 1,200 trees planted in a day. So when so one aspect of the volunteering with Tree Project is that people who come from Melbourne and actually help plant the trees on a farm in country Victoria. And I actually manage a lot of those days myself. So I manage, 20, 30, 40 people, depending on, where it is and how far and how many plants we're wanting to get on the ground.
So that's the second part of what you do. So if Lena wants to get a group of people together, for instance, at work, a small group, a small group might join you and contact you, and there'd be various allotted days where there'd be plantings happening on different properties on different days that one could nominate to participate in. Is that how that works?
Yeah, that is pretty much. So you would register with Tree Project, and they will then, you go on a database, and Tree Project may then manage all the planting days with the various farmers they have. And they're saying, okay, well, on 1st of July, we're having a planting in the Yarra Valley next door to the main Shandong, so that afterwards we can go and have a wine tasting. And other APT travel group or some other organisation in Melbourne, or even just single volunteers, may put their hand up and saying, yeah, I would like to be there. And then we may get a group of, say, 20 odd people on the day. And then, sorry, the screen keeps popping around. And then once that happens, I frequently manage those days.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Yeah. And how many trees, do you know how many trees you planted last year in total, roughly?
I think about 40,000. Yeah.
14 or 14?
40. 40.
40,
yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
And that's to give you an indication, we have planted just shy of 3 million trees over the last 30 years with Tree Project. And since I've been involved, we've had years of as many as a touch over 100,000 in 1 year, and obviously much less. But that gives you an idea. At the moment, we're sitting sort of between 35 and 50.
I think it'd be remiss of me not to ask about the bushfires. And what? There we are. John McRae said that 90,000 seedlings are coming in this current season. So there's 90,000. You need to plant, Kurt.
That's correct. And I think that probably fits in well with the question that you're about to ask about the bushfires, and I think that's why there is that many trees. Like, we had a lot of inquiries during and after the bushfires. No is the answer to your question. Have we grown for farmers that have been burnt? The reason is it's mostly the bushfires were far away from Melbourne, and we are really at the moment sort of stuck with a range of about 200 kilometres from Melbourne, 200 to 300 at a stretch. The reason is that because most of the growers are in Melbourne and the volunteers are in suburban Melbourne, to get those trees to, for example, Wangaratta or even beyond is just too much transport costs and time and effort. And so one of the things that Tree Project started doing under my presidency, and it has been attempted before, but we didn't really get the interest. But after the bushfires, there's certainly a lot of interest to have satellite groups from Tree Project, 200-300 kilometres out, to facilitate those areas that now are out of reach.
So tell us a little bit more about that and the satellite concept. When you say you've got a limit to your travel, obviously there's a limit that volunteers will go and you can take such large numbers of trees. But what's your concept there? Because you're trying to spread into Gippsland and other regions. Yeah,
bright area where there was also had been bushfires, I suppose. The idea is that we find volunteers there who will actually take on the challenge of running a Tree Project satellite organisation, which does require, you need at least half a dozen very committed people to do that, because there is the teaching of the growers, there is the distribution of the materials, there is the managing of the plantings, all those things do take time and effort. I have been very instrumental in setting that up in the Yarra Valley under a program called Ribbons of Green from the Shire of Yarra Ranges, which has been very successful. That's about, probably 10 to 15,000 trees a year are planted through that one project alone, which is just a fairly small part of tree project, obviously, if you're looking at the fact that we're planting 90,000 trees next year, hopefully. But yeah, so this is what we're hoping to do in the future once we've sort of found our feet a little bit after this whole COVID experience. Time will tell how that will work out, but the aim is to get satellite organisations outside of Melbourne.
Yeah. So is there, if we heard or knew of people who might be interested in growing trees regionally, would that be an assistance or a help to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So certainly, at the moment, even without satellite organisations, Melbourne, I'm an hour out of Melbourne, 100 kilometres out of Melbourne CBD. I could quite easily get trees coming from, say, Tuberak or Gisborne or somewhere around here, because that would be about the same distance or even closer than Melbourne trees. And so those growers could then come and deliver the trees, actually help plant the trees on the planting days, which does happen frequently. And I suppose, technically speaking, another advantage of having locally grown sort of country trees, they tend to be a bit stronger for two reasons. One is it's more windy in the country, and wind actually creates quite strong trees when they're growing as young seedlings. But also that the temperatures in winter are more aligned with where I am, because we do get, sort of -5, sometimes -6, 7 degrees frost. And in Melbourne, you wouldn't get that. If I have a grower in Tuberak or elsewhere, they will have very similar weather patterns. And so the trees are actually harder and more suited to being planted on my farm.
Yep. Yes, you've got to be tailored to the farms, which leads us on to a question that is from Anthony, which we discussed when we were talking the other day, was about the survival rates of trees. So,
okay, that varies greatly, and I did mention that to you the other day.
You did?
Last year was probably one of the driest end of winters and early summers that I have experienced in living in Australia for 30 years. I had a success rate of pushing it on 50%. This year, I've planted another 4,000 trees. I have seen some dead plants, but I would say it's in the order of 97% plus. Over the years, I would say the success rate is about 70%.
Yep. Depends on the weather conditions at the time. So, and to everyone, if you've got a question, just pop it in the chat, because we're happy to pitch them and address those questions in our last sort of 7 or 8 minutes. Then the success, the bushfires, the landholder, and the 3 million trees have largely been in the northern sector of central and northern area of Victoria, have they? The 3 million trees you planted over the 20 years?
No, that is actually distributed fairly much around Melbourne, sort of from Geelong area all the way. I would say it'd be tempting to be more heavily weighted towards the Yarra Valley, because I've been running a fairly successful project there for the last 10 years. Prior to that, I was also actively involved in getting local landholders, because I used to live in the Yarra Valley, getting local landholders to plant trees, friends of mine. And so, I would say that I probably personally would have facilitated 250, 300,000 trees in the Yarra Valley alone over the last sort of 15 years. People that I've asked, hey, would you like to plant some trees? I work for a tree project, blah, blah, blah. And they go, yeah, that's a great idea. I'll have a windbreak or erosion control. A variety of reasons.
Yeah, and interestingly, that you've done this. You've planted 3 million trees, and you've said you plant a couple of 100,000 yourself. But there's
not
there's
plant
one
myself,
one part-time staff member, and everything else is done by volunteers. It's almost a purely volunteer-based organisation, I think, which is an amazing credit to the organisation and the support for everyone.
Yeah, it is.
And your funding is your funding all donation based, or is it also government funding as well?
No, there's no. Well, we have had some government funding in 2000 during the Olympics, because they wanted to offset some of the trees. But I think that has been the only government funding that I can remember in the time I've been involved. So there's donations, and so corporate donations and private people donations, but there's also membership. So I've under my presidency, I did try to bump that up to get more members. But yeah, then COVID obviously came and it all fell a bit on deaf ears, I suppose.
Yep. So we've got a question about COVID as well. So how's COVID impacted the planting season?
Okay. Biggest problem that COVID has caused is that we couldn't get groups of more than, I think, at a maximum of 10 people together before the very serious stage 4 lockdown that has actually just ended last night. So from
Not for all of us, it hasn't. We've still got the ring of steel is still a hurdle to overcome. But anyway, carry on.
Okay, listen, I thought it had been relaxed a bit more, but my apologies. I live on the farm. I sort of stay away from that because I don't need to. But so you get, the problem is the planting that I did just before the lockdown started, stage 4. I had 20 people on the farm. I've got 500 acres here, and basically what I did, I had 2 groups of 10. In fact, we had 3 groups of 7. And sort of, I said, okay, well, you come here, you go and pack your cars over there and plant your trees over there. And then we'll have one planting here around this dam. And then there's a little bit along the fence there as well. And so, people were, almost sort of 700-800 meters apart. And that's how we managed. Whether it was legally allowed, don't ask too many questions, but I think quite possibly not. But, I really did very responsible. We had food packed, pre-packed in paper bags in a basket that would go to each of the sites where they were planting separately. So, yeah, I got around it. I got, 4,000 trees in, which is a lot of trees. If you have to do by yourself, and I've got a couple of hundred left.
Yes, that's fantastic. Well done. So that's where, again, many hands make light work, I guess, and where, again, as Lena introduced or mentioned at the start, the commencement, that where the volunteer days come in, if you can get more arms and legs in that, of course, the 4,000 trees go in more easily, which is just great. I'll just flag also that John McRae there has just flagged that with some breaking about, we're talking about the bushfires, and breaking news is that the Tree Project is assisting Lakes Entrance and Malakuta revegetation. So again, that's outside that central area and quite a great stretch, but again, helping with that bushfire area, which is so such a big thing. So we've got a couple of minutes left, only a few minutes, but what also were the causes? What are the drivers behind causing a farmer to ask for revegetation?
Okay,
is it natural issues? Are they man-made issues? Commercial issues?
I would say most of them are man-made issues because it's erosion control, which is largely man-made. It is windbreaks for sheep, mostly cattle as well, but sheep more to the point. It is salinity control, which is also a man-made issue because of basically deforestation. The soil gets polluted with salt from further down, and we're trying to alleviate that. They are probably the 4 most pressing reasons why people plant trees. There is obviously just a revegetation, re-establishing habitat for animals, which I do on my farm. Of certain dams are basically covered up. And it'll be bird haven and frogs and animals.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Very good. So Craig just mentioned that OneTomorrows is a business member of Tree Project, which is say something again that one can volunteer for. So look at contact Lena and look at that. And if you're interested, maybe we get a small team together to go and do some planting at some stage. And it is because it is a great cause and can be something very, very different to what we normally do, and it can be backed by the volunteer days, because we all get 2 volunteer days a year from the company, and this is a great way to use those volunteer days. And so it's part of a traveller giving events. So what we'd like to do, Kurt, thanks very much for your time. We'd also like to make a donation of $2,500 if we can towards your trees, which I think is 1,250 trees. I think is that right?
Yeah, that's about right. Thank you very much. I'm obviously
1,250 seedlings for you to grow and to propagate, which is just absolutely fantastic. So, well, maybe we can find some volunteers to help put them in the ground come sort of April, May, June time.
Yeah, 21. Yeah, indeed. Listen, I've ordered another, I think, 1,000 or 1,500 trees for next year. I wanted to do it a little bit slower because I sort of had a few things on my plate. Yeah, but normally I'm a very keen planter. As I said, 4,000 this year, 3,000 last year. But there's many other areas. For example, the Yarra Valley, where we're also doing tree plantings. And if I'm managing the plantings, I tend to organise a wine tasting afterwards with some of the people.
Oh, now you're talking. Why didn't we start with that? We should have started with that, didn't we?
Well, hang on. We need to work first and then drink, okay?
That definitely brings city people and bush people together over the grape, most certainly.
Great fun,
Kurt,
yeah.
thank you very, very much for your time. We love what yourself and John McRae are doing. So,
yeah. Listen, I would like to thank you, Rob, and Craig James very much, and Lena, obviously, for helping us financially and hopefully in the future, with people power in the office, which is something that we haven't actually touched on. So we also enjoy having volunteers participating in the office in Melbourne, which we also need, but also out in the paddocks, getting your hands dirty, work hard for a day and go home very, very satisfied, possibly with a bottle of wine under your arm.
yeah, absolutely. So, and look, you're 20 years old. Our little, our travel business is over 90 years old, but our philanthropy business, OneTomorrows, is only just turned 1. So we're still learning to walk, but we're really pleased to be partnering with yourselves and doing what we can to support yourselves and your organisation. So really hope that we see more of our staff get behind it, and the great work that you do with Tree Project. It's terrific. It is in our own backyard, which is marvellous. Yep. It's really nice and close to home, and it's a very different day. So I hope people use their volunteer days on that one. So again, thank you, Kurt. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another OneTomorrow presentation and session.